Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today in the CAAT Pension Plan's webinar on Keeping the Plan Strong, Our Future Looks Bright. My name is Edgar Leung, and I am an analyst for employer services here at the CAAT Pension Plan. I will be the moderator for the webinar today. Before we get started, let's quickly review how we can participate in today's session. On your screen, there is a box, which is the webinar control panel. You will see this box in the top right corner of the screen. Locate the audio control section and choose phone call. You should see the access code and the audio pin, which you can use to dial in if you're using the phone. For optimal audio quality, we recommend that you listen to the webinar using your phone. During the webinar, there are a couple different ways of you to ask questions. If you're dialed in on the telephone, you can raise your hand by using the hand icon in the webinar control. I will unmute you and then prompt you to ask your questions during the Q&A. Or if you prefer, you can type your questions in the questions box at any time, and we'll address them at the end during the Q&A. We will do our best to address everyone's questions today, but if there are any questions that we do not answer during the webinar, we will respond to you afterwards. The webinar is also being recorded and will be posted to our website afterwards. Thank you for joining us today, and I will now pass it over to Derek